Welcome to the Gen Z Marketer podcast, where we have marketing conversations and everything in between. It's been a month since we started the podcast, and I just want to thank everyone who has been supporting us so far. Today's a good day. You can hear the birds chirping outside, and I'm actually enjoying my coffee as I'm recording this. And today we have a topic that I'm actually really passionate about, and this is something that I'm actually doing full-time as a brand strategist. How to build a brand Bible. So this episode is under the MarkeTips series, wherein I'll share with you some tips, and of course my tips now would be about how you can build your brand Bible. This episode is sponsored by The Modern Fashionista. They are a local clothing brand that has quality clothes at affordable prices for everyday Filipinas. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram, and Shopee as The Modern Fashionista. Before we get to it, I just want to go through quickly why you need a brand Bible. So I've had experiences in the past with brands or agencies I worked with in which when I was being onboarded, I was never given a brand Bible, a brand house, or a brand guide. And that really surprised me. Why is that? I think it's important when you're onboarding someone to work with you or to work for you. They should be given a brand Bible or a brand guide. This is because the brand Bible is the guide that will, or the ultimate guide that will really help this employee know more about your brand, more about your business, and likewise they know what they need to do when they're working for you. For my case, when I'm working as a marketer or a digital marketer or whatever, the brand Bible helps me get an insight that, okay, this is the brand we're working on, this is the brand that we have, therefore this is how we should market it, or therefore this is how we should talk to our target audience. And I was never given that, or I wasn't really given that in most of the brands I worked with, or when I was being onboarded for some brands. In fact, I had an experience where I had to build one for a brand I was working with. And for me, that's just something that brands really should look into, because I think they are under the assumption that the person they're onboarding or working with is familiar with the brand. And that's not necessarily wrong, because of course you're hiring or working with this person. The idea is they should have an inkling about what your brand is. And that's not necessarily wrong. I think that makes sense. But ultimately, don't assume what they know is the same with what you know. Like, basically for employers, are they assuming that the person they're hiring is on the same page with them when it comes to what their brand identity is or who the target audience is, right? And that's the importance of the brand Bible. It really guides everyone in the company as to what the brand is about. And that way, everyone's on the same page. You know what you're doing, you know what you're working for, you know who you're targeting. And that's why a brand Bible is important. And now let's talk about branding per se. When you say branding, some people think it's your visual cues like logo, your tagline, your colors, and that's not necessarily wrong. But that's just one of the elements or facets of branding. Those are elements that help influence branding. Because at the end of the day, branding is what your customers think of you. And that is why you come up with a branding or a brand Bible, for you to be able to influence those perceptions, for them to see your brand as the way you want them to see it. And branding has a lot of things going into it. When you create your brand, one of the things you have is your vision, your mission, and your values. Who are you as a brand? What do you value? Why do you do the work that you do? Where do you want your brand to go? How do you want to get there? So those are some of the elements. Now there's your story. What is your brand story? What is your brand about? How did you start doing business? How do you want your customers to go to be like, or what is their story when they're doing business with your brand? Like, how do you want them to see or be like with your brand, right? And another element is personality. Defining the personality is important because you can't just assume, of course, that your customers already know about your personality, or your employees already know about your personality. And one thing that helps define personality is brand archetypes. You could check those out. There are 12 brand archetypes. I think this is really helpful for your brand to have a clear picture as to who you are as a personality. And another key important thing about branding, which is something also very important for marketers, is defining your target audience. Your branding or your brand Bible can help you define your target audience, who you're talking to based on the personality or based on the brand that you have. Who's going to respond to your brand? Who are they? What do they value? What do they care about? What are they like? What is their personality? So all of these things you can also include in your branding. So imagine when you have all of these things to guide you, it's easier for marketers, it's easier for merchandisers, it's easier for employees who are in the stores or in the front house. It's easier for everyone under the company to really see what the brand is about and to reflect what the brand is about and to do business based on the brand identity, right? So there are actually other things you can add to your brand Bible. In my experience, creating a brand Bible is not consistent because there are always different kinds of information or elements that go through it. But the elements that I mentioned previously are some of the most consistent things that are included in the brand Bible. Additional content could be like one thing that I think I always add and is important for me in the brand Bible is your competitor analysis. Who are your competitors? What brands are you competing against with in the market? Where are they in the market? What are they doing? What is their brand like? All of these things you can add in your competitor analysis. And you can also add a positioning map. Where are you in the market versus where are they in the market? Those things can really help you, and help your marketers, help your merchandisers as well. Just see what the market landscape is like. And that's actually another information or thing that you can add, market analysis. What is the market like? Is it saturated? Are there a lot of brands? What are the current trends in the market? What are the upcoming predictions that would be trendy for the market? Those insights you can actually add. Another thing that I find could also be helpful for the brand Bible is a product overview or a product breakdown. Basically, you have different SKUs for your brand, right? This is another way for you to just get an overview on what kind of SKUs do you sell the most or the least. Maybe you sell 70% clothes and 30% shoes. So you can add those. What kind of clothes are you selling? What kind of shoes are you selling? What's the style like? Are you more feminine? Are you more trendy? You could also add these information. This would be helpful to your merchandisers or your marketers. Next, of course, we have the visual keys that we were talking about earlier, which is the logo, your color palette, your fonts, anything that is included or important into visualizing your brand. Sometimes adding your store design or store look can also help in the brand Bible. And one thing that I think I've added to some of the brand Bibles I've done before, but not everything, is the future plans for your brand. And I think this is helpful because, of course, you came up with your brand, your goals, your vision, your mission, and what your brand is like now. So the future plans kind of just really help you decide on where you want your brand to go. And this can also be a guide for the marketing team or the marketers working on your brand, just so they have an idea on, okay, where should this brand be, or where do we anticipate this brand to be? So what can we do to reach that? So as you see, or as you've heard, of course, there's a lot of things going on in the brand Bible, and you can see how important it is and how beneficial it could be if you had one for your business or your brand. This can really change the way you do business. This can really help you make more sound business decisions. This can help you really have more a picturesque view of what your brand or business is like. So what is the process on creating a brand Bible, or what should you do? One thing that is very, very important, and I would say again and again, maybe in the past or maybe in the future, I would repeat this in the podcast. What's important is research, research, research. When you're doing your competitor analysis, of course, you do your research. When you're looking at what other brands are in the market, you do your research. When you're thinking about what your brand personality could be like, or how can you differentiate yourself from other brands in the market, you do research. And research really helps you make sound business decisions. Research can give you additional insights on what the market is like or what your customers are like. Research could be as simple as doing a quick overview on things, or quick Google, social media look, or it could be something deep dive, like you could conduct a qualitative or quantitative study. It's entirely up to you, but I think research is something that you should do consistently because information changes as you go. For example, your customers for this year or maybe for the past few years have been young millennials, but maybe now your target market is Gen Z because they are growing older and young millennials have started to change their interests. So this is why research is important. And lastly, I'm just going to add another thing when it comes to the process or what you should do, is that you need to think of the reader. And the brand Bible is primarily read by people who work in the brand, your employees, or maybe people who work in the agency or who you work with. So you think about what you think would be important to them when they're coming up or when they're doing business for the brand, right? You need to think about what they need to know. And you could go, and ideally, rather, you should be as detailed as you can be when you're creating your brand Bible. Because for me, I think that's easier for everyone who's doing business to just really be on the same page on what the brand is about. So I hope these tips helped you in thinking about how you can build your brand Bible, or if you want to revise your brand Bible, what else can you do? I hope these tips really helped you. If you like this episode, check out episode 6 of the podcast on the difference between branding and marketing and why you need both to build a brand. Follow our podcast to get notified on our latest uploads. We're also on social media as the Gen Z Marketer on Facebook, at Gen Z MKT on Instagram, and at anchor.fm/GenZMKT. Leave us a message to share your thoughts or if you want to collaborate.